Spiral. The Knights of Byzantium finally take center stage as the gang flees from Glory.
No X-Men tie-in.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
We open right where the last episode left off, where Glory has discovered that Dawn is the key, and she starts to go after her, but Willow, again, puts up her invisible wall, which is, again, very effective.
Buffy tries to escape with Dawn, but Glory still chases after them at super speed, but she didn't have to, because Buffy and Dawn aren't running that fast.
And once Glory catches up, things look dire, but then she's hit by a Mad TV joke, which allows Buffy and Dawn to escape.
And Glory uncontrollably transforms into Ben. Later at Xander's apartment, Dawn excitedly tells the others what happened, as if they didn't almost just die, and Giles is relieved that they're safe, but Buffy correctly points out that they barely manage to get away from Glory every time. She doesn't say it's mostly because Glory just stands there and doesn't chase them, but at least she's being more intelligent than usual.
And she suggests running away, since there's nothing they can do to beat Glory, which would make sense, because we've been told Glory is on a really strict timetable that's really close to reaching its end. So if they stayed away from her, they would be able to return to their lives in pretty short order. It's a logical move. And Anya even pointed out how logical a plan it was, but the show treated it like a joke.
She remembers the scene where they teleported Glory away a few episodes ago and suggests taking their Looney Tune tactics to the next level by dropping a piano on her, and it was obviously supposed to be funny, but the humor didn't really fit the context, and that's a recurring theme for these last few episodes of the season, I think.
Elsewhere, Ben is talking with a goblin and says he only exists because Glory failed, and all he wants is to be normal. What a Buffy.
He stupidly tells the minion that he might be able to find a combination of drugs that will keep Glory from coming back, but then he never ends up trying that. And he says that if Glory gets the key, he will cease to exist, but he can prevent that by getting the key first. But the minion doubts that he could really bring himself to kill the key.
Why does he even need an experimental concoction of drugs? Couldn't he just put himself in a coma for a predetermined period of time?
Or try to put himself in a place where he can't escape from without knowledge that Ben has that Glory wouldn't have. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things he could do, but he doesn't try any of them.
He could just put himself on a plane and go across the country.
And I will note that this minion is a female, which was a little weird, because we haven't seen that, and her mouth movements are particularly mismatched to her voice, which was very distracting. The gang waits outside on the curb, talking loudly, until an RV arrives containing Buffy, and Giles and Xander object to the driver being Spike, but Buffy overrides them.
Elsewhere, the Knights of Byzantium have retrieved their CGI'd colleague from the hospital and take him to their leader, whom they call General.
The General has a tattoo on his forehead, and the others take off their caps, revealing they also have tattoos on their foreheads. What a good way to make sure you don't stand out. The CGI'd guy mumbles stuff about the key being a girl, and the General automatically assumes that it must be true.
So, this huge army of knights on horses and everything start marching through a public park in broad daylight, but nobody seems to mind.
And the General says they're going to end things now, but knowing that the key is a girl doesn't tell them where it is, and again, it's very impractical for them to try to get around like this.
They just have to slowly kill every girl they see on Earth until they get the right one.
Well, why didn't I think of that? That makes sense.
It's a solid plan.
In the RV, Giles has taken the wheel, and Xander is getting carsick. He complains again about Spike, but Giles assures him that Buffy knows what she's doing, despite all the evidence to the contrary.
And Buffy herself is sulking in the back when Dawn goes to talk to her, and Buffy wallows in her self-pity for a solid 10 minutes.
She says everything just keeps coming, and names Glory, Tara, and Joyce, but then she throws Riley in, and that's not the same kind of thing at all.
And I was happy he did not show up in this episode.
Me too. We see Glory's minions, whose makeup doesn't extend past their wrists, casting runes, and saying that things are coming into alignment.
Back in the RV, when Dawn says at least things can't get any crazier, the Knights of Byzantium start attacking the RV on horseback.
And I wondered how they figured out they were in there or where they were at all, but we never find out. And when arrows start popping through the walls, they keep stopping halfway for some reason. They're already through the wall. Why would they stop? Giles tries his best Mel Gibson impression, but it doesn't do much.
Buffy makes her way to the roof and starts fighting a bunch of the Knights, and seems to have a tough time, even though they're just regular guys, and they're wearing a bunch of bulky armor and stuff. but it was a neat little action sequence.
At one point, Buffy awkwardly swings a sword around, only to let it go when a guy falls off the roof. But surprisingly, she does throw an axe at another guy, which was actually pretty cool. And Giles somehow doesn't notice a guy on a horse running right at them until he throws a spear through the windshield and into his side, causing him to further reenact the chase scene from The Road Warrior.
They manage to make their way into an abandoned gas station, where Willow tries to tend to Giles' wounds, and 100 other knights show up, even though it looked like there were none before, and start smashing their way in.
I wondered what happened to the one on the horse, because he threw the spear, he succeeded in stopping the vehicle, but then he apparently ran away, until everybody else showed up.
I mean, maybe that's what he did, because he realized he was by himself. And then he could say, hey, other guys, I saw them go into this gas station. Follow me.
Quit using logic. This is not the show for that. The knights start chopping their way in, and Buffy and Spike fight them, while everyone else just kind of sits around, I guess. And Buffy manages to knock out the leader before Willow sets up a force field.
Yeah, these people have fought off super strong demons and vampires and all kinds of stuff. Why did they not help out right now against regular people?
Good question.
Much later, because it's night, Buffy finally decides to interrogate the general. Why she waited until it was dark, I don't know.
I think it's supposed to be that he was unconscious the whole time, but
okay.
If he was unconscious that long, he's probably going to have severe brain damage. So
all right, you're telling me not to use logic, and here you are telling me how the sun works.
The general says the key is the link, and severing the link is the will of God. And Buffy tells him they aren't their enemies right after insulting their God, which was very strategic.
Plus she, tied him up to a pole. She begs him to call off the knights, but he refuses.
Tara suddenly flips out and tries to get outside, and she and the other CGI people start repeating, "It's time," over and over. And the patients in the hospital manage to break loose and leave. Before the CGI knight can leave, he is stabbed by his friend, who says Glory will never know the taste of his heart. And I thought that scene was going to end up being more important somehow, but it doesn't.
I thought the knights in general were going to end up being more important, but they weren't.
Yeah, well, that's in my wrap-up.
Giles, in an Oscar bait death speech, tells Buffy he's very proud of her and everything he could have hoped for.
So he's obviously very delirious. He passes out, and Buffy tells Willow to open a door in the force field.
She goes out and asks the knight to send in someone to help Giles.
They tell her that they lost 10 men in the battle, which was a lot more than it looked like.
They didn't even count the horses. Maybe they were counting the horses.
Did they lose horses? I don't think Giles ran over any horses.
We don't know that. He was ramming them off the road.
He tried.
They agree to send someone in, so Buffy calls Ben, since he's a nurse. When he arrives, he's as dumb as ever, making quirky one-liners, much to Spike's and my annoyance. And the whole time he's working on Giles, he's making eyes at Dawn, probably imagining what it would be like to rip her head off of her body.
Okay. Xander goes over and helps Spike light a cigarette for some reason.
I said for no reason.
Well, that's correct. And Spike says if they try to make a break for it, at least some of them can get away, but Buffy says no. The general criticizes her leadership, and they discuss Glory, and then again, for no reason at all, the general spouts out a bunch of exposition about how the other two gods that Glory ruled her dimension with exiled her and put her in a mortal newborn male body.
And if they can kill the human, then the god will die.
But Buffy points out that Glory is a woman, and the general says she can escape her prison for short times.
He also says that the monks hid the key because even though it was dangerous, they thought they could use its power for good.
He says it was created to not open just the door to Glory's dimension, but if activated, it would erase the barriers between all dimensions. So I wondered what the monks thought they could do with that.
Maybe that's why it's called Spiral, because they would bring Spiral into their universe. There's your X-Men tie-in.
Why is it called Spiral?
Because everything's spiraling out of control.
But it's not any different from, I don't know, okay. I feel sometimes like they just pick random words out and like, you know what, that's the title. Buffy and Dawn walk off.
But not really out of earshot.
Dawn talks about being upset that she's the key, but Buffy says she will protect her.
The general whispers to Ben that he knows he's not part of the gang, and he begs him to kill Dawn to end the madness.
And again, he says this while Anya and Willow are trying to feed Tara in the same room.
Yeah, I said whisper, but really, maybe it should just said, talks out loud.
Yeah. Ben goes over to Giles while Dawn is near him. She says it's her fault that he was hurt. Ben says sometimes bad things happen to good people and it's no one's fault. He says it in a very ominous way as he prepares a syringe and walks up behind Dawn with an ominous expression on his face while ominous music plays. But it turns out he's just preparing something for Giles. What a good fake out.
But then Ben flips out and says they need to let him go, but they don't. And he transforms into Glory right in front of them and throws a hubcap into the general. It was a hubcap, right?
Yeah.
Why are you laughing? That's what happened. I guess she capped his ass.
Oh, jeez. And she just kills him outright. Why doesn't she kill everybody outright? There were other hubcaps there. She could have thrown them all over the place. She knocks Spike and Buffy aside, then grabs Dawn and tries to run away, but is stopped by the force field. But then she just punches her way through it, and it closes behind her before Buffy can follow. Buffy tells Willow to lower it, but when she gets back out, Glory has already killed most of the knights and left.
Is it most or all?
There was one of them that was like, oh, I'm in pain, or I don't know exactly what his dialogue was, but it was something like that. But then, yeah, we never see what happened to that last night. Buffy probably killed him off screen.
The gang is trying to figure out what to do, and they're all arguing, and Buffy just can't function and collapses in a catatonic state.
Spiral. Overall?
We're closing all this up, which is good. We had the general deliver a grand exposition of why everything matters, which was nice, but would have also been nice a little earlier in the season. We could have gotten some more from the knights, and now they're all dead. But instead, in this season, we decided to focus on multiple episodes about building sex robots, Xander getting split into 2 Xanders, and fighting troll ex-boyfriends. Good move. I don't know why Buffy was so upset to be running away when she has spent the last 5 seasons avoiding confrontation in the form of shirking her responsibilities down to outright ignoring them, all whilst complaining the entire time. The result is the same as what she did in this episode, she just took a different path to get there. And in this case, it actually made sense to run away. Why did they take the shittiest RV on Earth? Why not buy plane tickets or hop on a train? I'm sure Sunnydale has an airport and a train station.
Well, we've seen the train station for sure.
Yeah, both of those things move much faster and can go much farther.
But see, those also leave paper trails.
How did they get the RV?
I think Spike did say that he stole it. I think. But yeah, why not steal something else?
Giles getting beat up to the point of death was very dramatic. But, and you might have to correct me here, Willow said she can't bring people back to life with magic, but couldn't she heal him with some magic? They're just superficial wounds.
I feel like the answer is yes, but they didn't think about that.
Where is the Watchers Council? Could they not have helped out with any of this, including the Knights of Byzantium? It seems like an order that ancient and important would have been helpful to know about.
Not gonna lie, I forgot all about them at this point.
Yeah, we had that whole episode where Buffy forced the council into helping her, but then they just disappeared. So it looks like they didn't help her. And speaking of the Knights, that's it? They're all just dead? What a great payoff to this ancient secret society that's been lurking in the shadows for an entire season. We knew when they first showed up that they wanted to destroy the key. And here we found out it was because Glory wanted the key to complete her plan, but we already knew that. And now they're dead. So is that it for them?
I mean, they did say that if they get killed, more will keep coming. So I wonder if more are going to show up later.
I would hope so.
But it was disappointing for this episode.
Agreed. I really hope that Glory needs to get Dawn to a specific location at a specific time for her ritual, because if all she needs to do is kill Dawn, then she should just snap her neck right then and there, instead of making a super dramatic exit for no reason. But like you said, she should have just killed the rest of them right then and there. Things are closing up for this season, which is good, but as a part of the overall season, this one brought a bunch of stuff to light that made me ask more questions, because things didn't really make sense. So not good questions. I gave this one a C+.
I also gave it a C+. I had given it a B-, but I'm going to change it.
Yeah, because I make good points.
I didn't think this was a bad episode, but it was also nothing special. But I'm glad it felt like things actually happened. It was cool to see Buffy openly kill a human. That hasn't happened in a while. I would have thought that she and the Knights might at least try to form an alliance, or at least an agreement, instead of fighting each other, since they both want to stop Glory.
Well, Buffy kind of did.
Did she?
With the general.
She mostly just insulted them over and over, and then killed a bunch of them.
That's how I do it.
And the Knights, as a whole, were as disappointingly one-dimensional as I expected. Maybe if they had actually done something with them earlier instead of waiting so long to bring them in, the previous episodes could have had more going on, and the Knights could have been better developed or developed at all. It was good to see Buffy be a bit more realistic with her reactions to things, But characters like Giles came off looking stupid by comparison.
Yeah, it's like when one facet of the gang takes things seriously, the other ones cannot agree with them by default.
Right, it seemed like everybody else had the same typical dialogue they always have, but Buffy was actually trying to take things seriously here.
Think about how effective they could be if they all took things seriously.
That's something that the writers apparently can't imagine. Willow was at least doing some stuff with magic, and they at least tried to do something interesting on the production side with the Mad Max chase. I guess it was kind of cool. It was cool that they did it. I don't know how effective it really was, though. So Glory has Dawn now, but like you were saying, my prediction is that she either has to perform some kind of ritual that will take forever, or she has to wait for whatever alignment her goons keep talking about.
And if it takes forever, that would conflict with everything the show has been telling us about how the time is imminent. It's coming up right this second.
And why Glory doesn't just kill all the people standing in her way is a question that I'm sure will never be answered. So things are happening. I just wish they were a little more interesting and made a little more sense. So hopefully by the end of the season, the writers will have things a little bit more figured out.
That would be nice. Thanks for watching.